Look at your fingernails right now. Not tomorrow, not later. Right now. Because one small change in your nails may sometimes appear before more obvious symptoms of certain health problems. And that's something many people over 60 have never been told. Most people assume nail changes are simply part of getting older, but doctors often pay attention to the nails for a different reason. Certain nail changes sometimes appear alongside health problems developing elsewhere in the body. And that's what makes today's topic so important. Today, I'm going to show you 4 nail changes that doctors often pay close attention to because they may sometimes reveal problems hiding beneath the surface. Some may be linked to vitamin deficiencies. Others may be associated with circulation problems. And one of them is so commonly ignored that millions of older adults assume it's just aging. Take a quick look at your nails. Do you notice unusual ridges, changes in color, a different shape than you remember? If so, don't panic, but don't ignore them either. Most nail changes are not a diagnosis. However, they can sometimes be a signal that deserves a closer look. The 4th sign is especially important because many people see it every day and never think twice about it. Yet doctors may view it very differently. And by the time you reach the 4th sign, you may want to take another look at your own nails. So, why do doctors pay attention to fingernails in the first place? After all, they're just small pieces of keratin growing from the tips of our fingers. Or at least, that's what most people think. But doctors have known for a long time that the nails sometimes reveal more than people expect. Because the same things that affect your overall health can also affect the way your nails look. Blood flow, oxygen delivery, nutrition, and the body's ability to grow and repair healthy tissue. That's why doctors sometimes take a closer look when they notice changes in the nails, and that's especially important after 60. Because as we age, the risk of nutritional deficiencies, circulation problems, and chronic health conditions gradually increases. Sometimes these changes happen slowly. So slowly that a person may not notice anything unusual at first. No pain, no emergency, no obvious warning sign. Yet changes may already be taking place beneath the surface, and in some cases, the nails may be one of the first places where those changes become visible. Now that doesn't mean every nail change is a sign of a health problem. Most aren't, but some are important enough that doctors pay attention when they see them. And the first change doctors often look for is something millions of people have right now, and assume is completely normal. Vertical ridges. Let's start with vertical ridges. These are the thin lines that run from the base of the nail to the tip. If you look closely at your own nails right now, there's a good chance you'll see at least a few of them. And that's exactly why this sign is so often ignored, because millions of older adults have vertical ridges and assume they're completely normal, and in many cases, they are. But here's what many people don't realize. Doctors don't just look at whether ridges are present. They pay attention to how they appear, because sometimes the nails can reveal clues about what's happening inside the body long before other symptoms become obvious. That's one reason doctors may ask questions about nutrition, appetite, recent weight loss, or other changes in overall health when evaluating nail changes. As we get older, the body gradually produces less natural oil and moisture. The nails can become drier, less flexible, and small ridges may begin to appear over time. For many people, that's exactly what's happening, a harmless, age-related change. But when ridges become unusually prominent or appear alongside other symptoms, doctors may decide it's worth taking a closer look. Most people who have them do not have a serious health problem simply because they have ridges. But when nail changes appear together with other symptoms, they may provide another piece of the puzzle. That's why doctors pay attention, because the body often leaves clues in places most people never think to look. And that brings us to the second nail change, one that's often much easier to notice than vertical ridges. Changes in nail color. The second nail change doctors often pay attention to involves color. Because healthy nails usually have a fairly consistent pink tone, That's a sign that blood is reaching the tissue beneath the nail as expected. But sometimes the color of the nails can begin to change, and that's often when people start noticing something looks different. Some people notice nails that appear unusually pale. Others may develop nails that look more yellow than they used to. And occasionally, certain areas of the nail may appear darker than expected. And while many of these changes turn out to be harmless, some are important enough that doctors don't simply ignore them. Now, it's important not to jump to conclusions. Many nail color changes have harmless explanations. Aging, minor injuries, certain medications, even nail products. But doctors still pay attention when a nail suddenly looks different from the way it looked before, because changes in nail color can sometimes appear alongside changes happening elsewhere in the body. For example, unusually pale nails may sometimes be seen in people with certain conditions that affect the blood. Yellowing may occasionally appear alongside fungal infections or changes in circulation. And darker areas sometimes deserve closer attention, especially if they appear unexpectedly or continue to change over time. Nail color alone cannot diagnose a health problem, and most color changes turn out to have a harmless explanation. But when a noticeable color change appears and doesn't go away, doctors generally want to understand why. Because the question isn't just what the nail looks like. The question is what may have changed to make it look that way. And that brings us to the third nail change, one that many people mistake for a cosmetic issue when it may actually tell a much bigger story. Changes in nail shape. The third nail change doctors sometimes pay attention to involves shape. Because healthy nails tend to have a fairly consistent appearance, most people don't spend much time thinking about the shape of their nails until something changes. And that's often when questions begin. Some nails may gradually become more curved than they used to be. Others may appear flatter. And in some cases, the fingertips themselves may seem different from what a person remembers. Now, it's important to remember that nail shape can vary naturally from person to person. Not every unusual shape is a sign of a health problem. And many people have perfectly healthy nails that simply look different from someone else's. But doctors still pay attention when the shape of a nail changes noticeably over time, because that's often what matters most. Not what the nail looks like today, but whether it looks different from the way it looked before. For example, some nail shape changes have occasionally been associated with conditions that affect oxygen delivery within the body. Others may simply reflect normal aging or harmless variations. The key point is that doctors don't look at nail shape in isolation. They look at the whole picture, other symptoms, medical history, and any additional changes that may be occurring at the same time, because a nail rarely tells the entire story on its own. But it may sometimes provide another clue worth paying attention to. And that brings us to the fourth and final nail change, the one many people see every day, the one most people never think twice about, and the one doctors often pay particularly close attention to when it suddenly changes. Changes in nail thickness. The fourth and final nail change doctors sometimes pay attention to involves thickness. And this is the one many people see every day without giving it a second thought. Because nail thickness often changes so gradually that it's easy to miss. A person sees their nails every day, so small changes rarely stand out. Until one day, they do. Some people notice their nails becoming thicker than they used to be. Others find that their nails become more brittle, harder to trim, or more difficult to manage than before. And that's exactly why this sign is so often overlooked, because the change usually happens little by little, month after month, year after year, until it simply feels normal. And in many cases, these changes are completely harmless and simply reflect normal aging. Aging alone can affect the way nails grow. Years of everyday wear and tear can also play a role. But doctors still pay attention when nail thickness changes noticeably, because changes in thickness can sometimes appear alongside conditions affecting circulation, nutrition, or the health of the nail itself. That's one reason doctors may ask questions about other symptoms when evaluating nail changes. Not because thicker nails automatically mean something is wrong. They don't. But because the reason behind a change is often more important than the change itself. And that's exactly why paying attention to your nails can sometimes be worthwhile. Not because they can diagnose disease, but because they may occasionally give you an early reason to ask a question that otherwise might never have been asked. So what do all of these nail changes have in common? Vertical ridges, changes in color, changes in shape, and changes in thickness. The answer is simple. None of them can diagnose a disease on their own, and that's one of the most important things to remember from this video. Because many people make the mistake of looking at a single symptom and immediately assuming the worst, but that's not how doctors think. Doctors look at patterns, they look at changes over time, and they look at the bigger picture. That's why a nail change that means very little in one person may deserve closer attention in another. The context matters. Your overall health matters, and any other symptoms you may be experiencing matter too. What makes these nail changes interesting isn't that they provide answers, is that they sometimes raise questions. Questions that might otherwise never be asked. Questions about circulation, nutrition, oxygen delivery, or changes occurring elsewhere in the body. And sometimes asking the right question is the first step toward finding the right answer. That's why paying attention to your nails isn't about becoming worried every time you notice something different. It's about becoming more aware of your body, because the people who notice changes early are often in the best position to decide whether those changes deserve more attention. And that brings us to the most important question of all. What should you actually do if you notice one of these changes? So, what should you actually do if you notice one of these nail changes? The first step is simple. Don't panic. Remember, none of the signs we've discussed today can diagnose a disease on their own, and many nail changes turn out to have completely harmless explanations. The second step is to pay attention to whether the change is new. Has the nail looked this way for years? Or is it something you've only recently noticed? Because doctors are often more interested in change than appearance alone. A nail that has looked the same for decades may tell a very different story than a nail that suddenly begins to change. The third step is to look at the bigger picture. Have you noticed any other symptoms? Changes in energy levels? Unexpected weight loss? Shortness of breath? Changes in appetite? Or anything else that seems unusual for you? Because a nail change may be far more meaningful when it appears alongside other changes in your health. And finally, if a nail change is new, persistent, worsening, or simply concerns you, consider discussing it with a healthcare professional, especially if it appears together with other symptoms. Because sometimes the most valuable thing a symptom can do is start a conversation that leads to answers, reassurance, or, when necessary, earlier attention to a problem that might otherwise have gone unnoticed. The important thing is not to become afraid of every change you see. It's to become more aware of your body, because awareness is often the first step toward protecting the health and independence that matter so much as we get older. And that brings us to one final thought about what your nails may really be trying to tell you. As we've seen today, your fingernails may reveal far more than most people realize, not because they can diagnose disease, and not because every change is a reason to worry, but because they may sometimes reflect changes happening elsewhere in the body. And that's why doctors occasionally pay attention to them, not because the nails provide all the answers, but because they may sometimes provide an early reason to ask a question. And sometimes asking the right question can make all the difference. Perhaps the most important thing to remember is that your nails are only one small part of a much larger picture. No single ridge, no single color change, no single change in shape or thickness can tell the entire story on its own. What matters is the pattern. What matters is whether something has changed, and what matters is paying attention when your body tries to get your attention. Because healthy aging isn't about noticing every tiny imperfection. It's about staying aware, staying curious, and continuing to take an active role in your health. So the next time you trim your nails or happen to look down at your hands, take a moment to notice what you see, not because you should be afraid, but because awareness is one of the simplest health habits we can develop at any age. And now I'm curious, have you ever noticed any of these nail changes yourself? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more evidence-based insights on healthy aging. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.